Hello everybody, welcome back to various Oddities Showcase, and this time there's a few interesting things to check out, but for the most part I've just been doing cleanup work, doing a few bunch of little tasks that are things that have kind of been necessary for a while, but I've kind of been busy with other things to get done, and they're mostly little small things, so I'll be showing off a few of those today. That said, there is a little bit of some sparkle to have at the end of this, and the first thing I have to show off, as I very carefully make sure I'm standing on top of this button, is that we have now got icons and colors for pretty much every single status effect that we have. We even have a new one I'll be showing off in a moment. The only two that haven't got icons but do have colors are the fall damage, resistance, and immunity effects, because I'm having a hard time figuring out what's a decently coherent way of showing falling damage that isn't just vertical lines. But if I click here, we can see that we have resistances, and these are, giving us colored particles now, and they're based very much on the fire resistance vanilla status effect, which is technically fire immunity, which is why we don't have a fire immunity over here. But we've got arrows, which affects all projectiles, not just arrows. We've got wither, magic, any form of magic damage, which includes Ender Dragon Breath for some reason, and the as yet mostly untextured fall immunity, but it's still got an icon there of some sort, so hey, that's something. And then, of course, we also have the resistances. Similar thing, we also have our own fire resistance, which functions more like the resistance in vanilla than the fire resistance, but hey, it's cohesiveness, coherence, good to have, helps players know what on earth a thing does. But we've got arrow, wither, magic, fire, and of course, fall. And yeah, just straightforwards. And then we have the more unique ones, which is why I'm standing on that button. So we have Deafened, we have Swim Boost, Petrified, Entangled, Arcane Sight, which I'll be talking about in a hot minute, Climbing, and Revealed. Which makes me quite a sight indeed, and oh right, I can't quite reach this here, can I? Well, the button was for naught, but I also can't move, so oh well, hang on a hot second here, everybody. There we go. Okay, right. So yeah, that's a thing. You can now actually tell what the potions are. They're not just, like, blank bars in your top right anymore. The next thing is, if I grab Wall of Fire here, persistent spells, that is, spells that have a duration greater than 0, are now visible to their owner and those of the Arcane Sight status effect. So if I set up a Ring of Fire over here, which has now been made significantly more pretty when it loads up, here we have the Wall of Fire object that's actually creating that effect, and when that effect is done, this will destroy all of those objects there and then itself, and if we have Arcane Sight 1, we can see the object. If we have Arcane Sight 2, we can see its name and thereby identify what it is. The ring that's hovering around here is also relevant. It is colored according to the school of magic that this particular spell has. If you are the owner, you can see your own spells, no problem. You don't have to have Arcane Sight available on you, which is why I can currently see it as well as the name, even though I don't have Arcane Sight up. And there are currently 3 spells that you can dismiss. Dismiss means to end a spell before its natural duration would normally cause it to end. In D&D, technically speaking, this is actually a concentration spell, which just lasts as long as you like, more or less, but for purposes of magic in Minecraft, Wall of Fire is a dismissible spell. And to dismiss a spell, you just go up to it, and if you are the owner or in creative mode, then you right-click, and away it goes. There is another way to get rid of those spells, though, which I'll have a little bit of trouble showing, because if you're the owner, you can dismiss spells anyways, but yeah. The next thing I have to show off... Oh, you're going to have such fun. Okay, Acid has finally been implemented, and Acid, predictably, burns through things. So the vial of Acid will place a spread of this liquid, not a very large one, it usually always peters out, and that's because vial of Acid only ever places flowing acid. And it does have a limit to what it will burn through. That limit more or less starts with the storage blocks, actually, the block of iron. You cannot get source blocks of acid in survival mode. This is very important and significant, as you're about to see when I drop down the bucket of acid here. But if I just make ourselves a little platform here. So there is an actual source of lava, and it is very swiftly destroying a large portion, and it ain't really stopping. A source of acid just on a block that it can destroy will potentially, eventually, hopefully, peter out, but more or less it will stick around forever in this case. So you can have a bucket of acid should you happen to need, say, a pool of acid in your adventure map, but you can only get access to the actual just partial thing using vial of acid in survival. That is important for one of the spells that we have today, and yeah, it's very sluggish. If I made it flow faster, it currently has more or less about the same kind of flowing speed as lava. If I made it flow faster, then it would just do heck all, because it would just dissipate rapidly. So yeah, that's why it's so slow. It's a very sluggish, it's very slow and lazy kind of, yeah. But also, it deals acid damage, as does another spell that I'll be showing off later. Now, acid damage functions like normal damage, except that it will also deal a random percentage of the damage it is dealing in a given instance to all of your equipment. That includes all of your armor pieces, as well as your offhand item and whatever item you happen to be holding in your main hand, assuming that they are in fact damageable. And that value is calculated per item, so it can vary quite dramatically. But that means if you are sat in fact in some acid here, your armor degrades very rapidly. Your armor takes a degree of damage in general just when you take damage, but acid adds on top of that. So it is very good if you happen to be wanting to get rid of somebody's super powerful armor and such. Just as an idea there. Yeah, let me just clear that up a little bit. It's not going away because it thinks it's attached to that. Diagonals in Minecraft, everybody. But okay, enough of all of the nitty-gritty kind of details. Let's show you what you've all come for, shall we? The projectile spell family. So the first thing that we have for this case is just, of course, the very classic magic missile. And let's give me a target here, shall we? Just get a shulker in here. Say hi. No? Come on, I know you're in there. Hello? There you are. Okay, thank you. Never work with children or... And I guess he's kind of a contraption. Anyways, so, the magic missile spell is a little weird, because in Dungeons & Dragons, it actually fires more than one projectile based on your caster level, but we don't actually have a concept of caster level in There's Oddities currently. So it actually should only fire one projectile, but that's a little bit on the dull side. So I've given it a little bit of a spin. So if I just aim over here with no targets, we see we created 5, almost like, if you've ever seen Stargate, they look almost like ancient missiles. And they'll just happily float up and do nothing and just dissipate if they don't have a target. But if we have one, then they will noom towards it, and they will follow the target, they will home, they will go through all terrain, and they will wait their turn happily before they can damage the target. So the target always takes the full amount of damage, which is pretty nice. And you don't have to have a target when you start casting it. This was done chiefly because if you had to have a target, then you'd be able to detect targets through walls, and that didn't seem terribly fair to give you basically a radar. But that does also mean that you can start casting it and then end the casting period with a target. So, hey, you got that. Now, these don't do very much damage. Max amount of damage that this does is 5. But the fact that it can follow your target through walls is pretty potent, and it's got a pretty decently fast cast time to it as well. And as I say, they all dutifully wait their turn to deal damage to the targets. So, our shulker over there is going to have a pretty bad time for a little bit there. The next spell that we have utilizes our very new acid, and it is the Acid Arrow. Again, you don't need a target for this, because again, I didn't want to give you wall hacks or anything. And it fires a projectile that just deals acid damage if it hits directly, but also leaves a small pool of acid behind to make sure that you know what it was made of. And of course, we do that to our shulker over here, who's going to move, because we just replaced what block he's on. It's whack-a-mole, everybody! It's whack-a-mole with acid. I guess if this floor was made of iron blocks or something, it'd work a bit better. Yeah. But yes, so you do take damage from being an acid, he does take damage from being directly hit by the acid arrow. And then there is the pièce de résistance, for at least right now, which is the fireball. Now there's a range minimum on this, not a range maximum, a range minimum, which is, as you can see here, it's trying deliberately to take you out of the blast radius. Oh dear, he's mentioned a blast radius. What could Fireball do? Well, if you're not a particular aficionado of Magic the Gathering, or Dungeons & Dragons, or whatever you like, a Fireball spell is exactly what it sounds like. It's an explosive. In Dungeons & Dragons, though, it doesn't actually deal damage. Well, it doesn't do block damage like an explosion would. It is an explosion in the classical coding sense here. But as you can see, we shoot a fireball out. It deals a heck of a ton of damage, and I believe that damage caps out at about 30 right now. And lays around a bunch of fire. It doesn't do block damage, however, because it's actually more of a pressure wave than anything else. But that is one hell of an AoE, suffice to say. It is in fact our only AoE projectile spell currently, because Magic Missile only targets one thing, Wand of Acid Arrow only targets one block, and Wand of Fireball significantly more than that. But it does try to make sure that you're going to fire at a target that is beyond the radius of this, which is a pretty wide, about 6 block radius. Hoi! But yeah, that is what I'm working on right now. I'm currently just trying to make sure I've got as many small details ironed out before I put out the next release. And it will be the next release. So I don't know if I'll necessarily have a Voss next week, but if I can find something interesting to show off, then hey, we'll see about it. But other than that, that is about all I have for now. Oh wait, that's not quite it, isn't it? There is one more thing that I can show. Dispel. So I mentioned that you can dismiss some effects that are that you own but are also like actually dismissible. There's only 3 of them currently. That's Darkness, Wall of Fire, and Silence. Dispel Magic, on the other hand, allows you to dismiss other people's spells. Now I can't really show that terribly easily here, but hey, I can try. So let me see. Let's get a Wall of Ice going. This is a new member of the Wall family that you didn't get to see last time, and let's plonk it about here. Why not? And yep, it does look quite skippy and nice. Now, somewhere around here, there you are. There is our actual marker there. I've actually managed to trap myself. Well, good on me. Let's see. Let's hop out of here. And unlike Wall of Fire, Wall of Ice is not dismissible. This is also conjured ice, by the way, so it doesn't function like actual ice, which also means walking through it hurts. Ow. Okay. So here's our Wall of Ice, and we can't get rid of it. If I was in creative mode, I don't think I'd even be able to do that anyways. But if we take our Wand of Dispel Magic, and we can cast on it, we will eventually break it. And now that Shulker can actually see me, so I should get a little further away, shouldn't I? Now, Dispel Magic is not reliable. It can be very reliable. Its actual reliability is based on how powerful a given spell is. So the higher level of spell, which isn't currently a visible number, but hey, if it's on a wand by writ, it's level 4 or lower. If it's on scroll, it can be up to level 9. But the higher the level of spell, the less likely regular Dispel Magic can actually dispel it. Greater Dispel Magic, which only occurs on scrolls, can do quite a bit more, but more or less above 7th, 8th, 9th kind of level spells, it's fairly unlikely that you'll be able to dispel it. So the more powerful the spell, the harder it is to get rid of. But this does nonetheless give you the possibility to dispel spells. And as it says on here, you can attempt to unravel the magic of an ongoing targeted spell or all such spells within a 6-block radius. You automatically can undo your own spells, of course. So that's why that worked so well, because we were the owner. And yeah, so as you can see, there is a little bit of a visual effect there. There was particles, there was a glass breaking noise, and that is actually all that I have to show. So hope you've enjoyed, and I'll catch you all next time.